options on those surveys. Through that process, I started looking and talking with partners with Fish and Wildlife Service, Region 8, migratory birds, with DU, with Delta waterfowl. We kind of all got together and we had a meeting and we kind of talked about, what are our needs? What do we need to know? And primarily with the habitat folks of that picture, they kind of said, well, that's a great string of data. We've got some holes in the data. When they go in to seek funding for their projects, and they're dealing with the North American Waterfowl Conservation Act dollars, which is millions and millions of dollars. The DU typically are the ones that go after those fundings. That's where most of the DU project money comes from, or those NACA grants. And so we've got some holes, and so we're kind of looking at some new surveys that could potentially fill those holes. And part of that process is we need to find out what waterfowl are in, where are they, and at what time of the year are they there. And so these geolocators can provide that information. It's a continuous string of data. Once they're deployed on a duck, they provide within 150 kilometers the location of that duck 365 days a year, as long as they're deployed on the duck. They're pretty amazing, but you're correct, and they do have to be retrieved to have that data come back to us. The data is paramount in trying to figure out our timing and locations of some of these future surveys that we're kind of working on, and hopefully filling in some of the holes, in particular spring migration. There is no spring migration survey that's ever been done, and that's a really big hole to these habitat folks that are working on some of these big projects. So Dr. Nicolai did put together some information as far as recoveries on those, and so there's 3 species that we're looking at, wanting to put 50 geolocators on each of the 3 species, and they've got different retrieval rates for different reasons. And so based on band recovery rates, we're looking at, in the first year of the project, there would be from hunter retrieval, so there would be 9 geolocators returned off of mallards, 4 off of canvasbacks, and 5 off of wood ducks. Now, in that same year, off of our banding activities that are going on between the wood duck project and the department's preseason banding, there'd be an additional 5 mallards and 79 wood ducks. So in essence, the first year we'd get 52 of the 150 geolocators back. Now, there's a pretty complicated process to figure out the following years, because there's going to be fewer geolocators out there, and there's natural attrition. So, but over a 5-year period, we anticipate we can get back 90% of those geolocators. So that'd be 137 to the 150 over a 5-year process. As was pointed out by Mark earlier on this project, we're using the banding processes we're already doing to deploy these things. We already have a duck. We're putting a band on them. This is just one additional band to stick on them and turn them loose. And all we have to do then is just sit back and wait for these things to be returned to us, either, like I said, through hunter returns or through our continued trap banding efforts, recaptures. And then it's a really simple process of just hooking them up to the computer, downloading the data, and away you go. And really, really cheap. They're so small. They're really not any type of there's no loss, banding loss like you get sometimes with waterfowl and upland birds with regular radio transmitter, UHF stuff on them. There's some loss associated there, but these are so small they really haven't attributed any loss due to the unit itself on them. But it's a great way to retrieve data so that we can kind of fill in some of those holes and hopefully get some of these other surveys on the ground.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll take it out to public comment. Any public comment? Rex?
Rex Flowers for Washoe County. We supported these projects. The amount of monies that they were requested and stuff is minimal. We did ask for a clarification on the 3% overhead. The second project was the geolocators, and it was on page 2. It was noticed. Also, we asked for a clarification on the Carson Lake and Pasture Sprig Pond improvements. There's under other funding sources, there's $10,000 in-kind services composed of endow equipment and operator time. We know that's not coming out of our pocket, but we'd like to know how they come up with $10,000 in-kind service using department equipment and personnel. Thank you.
Okay. Any other, come on up, Mr. Burnside.
Craig Burnside, Douglas Cab. We unanimously voted to support all of the projects that are in this request. As the member who talked to Commissioner Drew about the pumping costs, I appreciate Mark's comment that there's an acknowledgement that those operating costs need to move towards putting those in the operations budget. Projects typically are finite in nature, and that's going to be an annual thing as long as we're trying to have ducks in Mason Valley and the other places. So acknowledging that that's an operational cost that needs to be moved towards the operations budget is greatly appreciated. If I wasn't here today, I'd be at my job as the Parks and Weeds Superintendent for Douglas County. And our biggest, on the weed side, our biggest thing is taking care of noxious weeds. We have a lot of ag in Douglas County. In fact, I believe we have 13 of the 17 weed-free forage growers in the state, all in Douglas County. And personally, I'd like to see more money put into control of noxious weeds. And if they haven't already, I'd like to see the management area staff be trained not only on identification of the weeds, but the timing of the most efficient control. Because treatment timing is critical to success of control. And I've been at a few of the WMAs and seen noxious weeds that were treated, and in my estimation, they were treated late. And so the seed bank is there for another generation of weeds. And I mean, on the park side, I get that, you know, every day you prioritize what you're doing, and sometimes you get to stuff when you can get to it based on other priorities. But the timing of the treatments is tantamount to having successful control. So if they haven't already, I'd like to make sure that the management area staff get some education on the timing of those treatments so that they can leverage those chemicals and have the best effect that they can. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner McNitch. Commissioner Bliss.
I'll make a motion to support the duck stamp request as provided to us today by staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bliss, second by Commissioner McNitch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed unanimous. Okay, it's 10:41. Let's take a 15-minute break and we'll come back.